This is an extension of practice problem number 2 from lesson 1, number puzzles, and unit 4, linear equations and linear systems, in which I compare using the distributive property and not using the distributive property to solve for x in this problem. I had mentioned earlier that this calculation gets out to 34, and that's because I chose to add this x first rather than adding -7. So I wanted to see the 4x, so I added x plus x plus x plus x, and that's 4x plus the 6, and then I added the -7. Because addition is commutative, you could choose to add -7 first and then x. So adding -7 first is what I did in the first arrow diagram. Or you could choose to add x, which is what I did here, and then -7. It doesn't matter. You can do that addition in either order. So now I'm at 34, add the -7 to get to 27, and now we see that 4x plus a -1. And we see that this 27 is 1 less than 4 times Andre's original number. So you add the 1, divide by 4, and that gets you back to this 7. When I solved for x, I really wasn't thinking about it very much. I saw this -7. I said, well, let's get rid of the -7 by adding its additive inverse. So -7 plus a +7 makes this 0, and 27 plus 7 makes this 34. So there's that 34 that showed up in the arrow diagram. And so now you have a choice. You can either use the distributive property or divide through by 3 first. So actually, you're going to see it's much easier to use the distributive property, but I wanted to compare both, and it's a good idea for you to work through both to become more comfortable with fractions. And the key to working with fractions is to never change them to decimal values. Because if you change thirds to a decimal value, it's a repeating decimal. It will mess up your calculations, and usually these fractions will resolve themselves. So let's see what happens. If I divide through by 3 or multiply by 1/3, then this 3 times 1/3. 1/3 of 3 is 1, or 3 divided by 3 is 1. So this becomes x plus 2. This is 1/3 of x. It's right here. Same as x divided by 3, or 1/3 of x. And this is 34 thirds, or 34 divided by 3. Now 1x is the same as 3 thirds. So 3 thirds plus 1/3 x is 4 thirds x. And here I just added the additive inverse of a +2, which is a -2, to get rid of that 2 on this side. And so that -2 shows up on this side of the equation. So now I have all the numbers that are by themselves on the right side and any value with x on the left side. Now to get rid of the 4 thirds, use the multiplicative inverse of 4 thirds, which is 3/4. So 34 thirds times 3/4. And this is what I mean by the fractions will eventually resolve themselves. These 3's will go away. 3 divided by 3 is 1, or 1/3 of 3 is 1, either way of looking at it. And you end up with 34/4. Still have a fraction, but eventually it's going to go away. And 3/4 of a -2 is a -6/4. So -2 times this 3 right here is a -6/4. So now everything's in fourths. I can add them together. 34 plus a -6 is 28/4, and 28 divided by 4, or 1/4 of 28, is equal to 7. So it is useful, although harder in this case than the distributive property. I'll show you that in a second. It's useful to go through this and make sure that you understand each step. Now, one thing that's interesting is I could have chosen to change this to thirds right here. So this would have been a -6 thirds. And 34 plus -6 is 28 thirds. So here we have 28 thirds, and down here is 28/4. So you might follow this through and try to understand why that is. When you have 28 thirds here and 28/4 here. And the key to that is understanding that this is 3 divided by 3, that these thirds and this 3 go away because 1/3 of 3 is 1. Now, on the other hand, you could have chosen to use the distributive property. So if I chose to distribute this 3 to x plus 2, that's going to be 3x plus 3 times 2 plus this x right here equals 34. So now we have 3x plus 6 plus x. So there's the 4x plus 6 equals 34. Subtract this 6, or add a -6 which is the additive inverse of positive 6. So 34 plus a negative 6 is 28. And you end up with 4x equals 28. So 1/4 of 4x, so the multiplicative inverse of 4 is 1/4. So 1/4 of 4x is x, and 1/4 of 28 is 7. So x equals 7. Either way, and again, the distributive property in this case is probably the simplest. I don't know if that's always the case, but most people will use the distributive property first. But it's important and useful to understand, to become comfortable working with these fractions as well.